We've been following closely, as has everyone, the events surrounding the raid into Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. And one of the conversations that spurred from it that I think may be likely is this idea that Trump may want to announce his run for president earlier than even he was already planning on doing, which was already reportedly going to be somewhat early. And this would secure both his decision to run as well as make him want to announce early to give him some sort of protection from what's going on. Now, if that's a thing that should be the way that it is, the fact that running for president could shield you from legal consequences is another conversation. Obviously, I don't think it should, but I do think it's reasonable. He knows there's going to be an even higher bar for them to go after him if he's an actively running president. But honestly, at this point, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. They've already kind of done a big public show that they are investigating him, so they're going to want to follow through. But regardless, it looks like people close to Trump are picking up on this idea and encouraging him to run and to announce his candidacy for president earlier than expected, before the midterms, which is really weird. Rarely ever do you have a president announce, or someone announce that they're running for president before even the midterms, because then you're taking a lot of the attention and a lot of the kind of pomp and circumstance out of the midterms, and it becomes about you, especially in the case of Donald Trump, where the entire midterms would become about him and not so much a referendum on the Democrats or the Republican Party or something like that. So very interesting stuff. First, we have Congressman Jim Banks, saying that they met with Trump and were encouraging him to announce early in light of the recent raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Now, from members
Laura,
who are
I've never seen President Trump as fired up as what he was tonight. He is not deterred. He's not fazed at all by what the DOJ has done to him, an unprecedented move of raiding the home of a former president and not at all explaining to the American people about why they did it. But House Republicans,
Quickly to that point, as has been highlighted a lot recently, Donald Trump and his lawyers have the power to shed more light on why his house was raided by releasing the information from the warrant, and they haven't done that. So
there were a dozen of us that visited with President Trump tonight. We wanted to go and tell President Trump we stand with him. And when Kevin McCarthy is Speaker of the House, Jim Jordan will be the right man at the right time in the right place as chairman of the House Judiciary Committee to hold the Department of Justice accountable for these actions. House Republicans are unified more than ever before to fight alongside President Trump to save this country. We largely, everyone in the room, encourage President Trump to run for president again, and the sooner he gets out and starts campaigning, the better. He helps Republicans in the midterm elections to get out his voters to support growing a historic Republican majority over the next 2 years that'll pave the way for winning back the White House in 2024. We have to.
So they met with Trump. He was very happy or motivated, I guess, was what he said. And they were encouraging him to announce as early as possible so that they could start campaigning, so that he could start campaigning and motivating his followers before the midterms. That's very fascinating. And I just want to say, I'm totally for that. If he's already going to announce for president at some point, definitely do it before the midterms, because that would absolutely help the Democrats. If you have a combined, all the stuff that has hurt the Republicans, namely abortion and gun-related things recently, as well as Trump running, on top of that, economic factors are looking better. Democrats have made some huge moves in the right direction with recent legislation. I think they would have a really good chance in the midterms, the Democrats, that is. So having Trump announce and reinvigorating the anti-Trump sentiment in the country, I think would be a huge win for the Democrats. I do think Republicans have a better chance of taking back the House and Senate if Trump is less in the picture. But if he's more in the picture, you could risk seeing what happened in 2020, which was a historic uproar against Donald Trump and against that movement. We have another person here, Jason Miller, former advisor to Donald Trump, also thinking it's much more likely now that he will run for president because of the raid from the FBI.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? You said to me during the break that I said, is he going to stand? I think he'll stand. What do you think? Do you think he'll stand? Because you said after last night, the Republicans are absolutely raging.
Absolutely. I think that before last night, I'd say it was maybe in the 60-40, maybe 70-30 range. I think after last night, I think it's almost certain that President Trump runs again. And I think the reason being is he realizes that once you start attacking the swamp, once you start trying to change things, they're never going to stop shooting at you.
So I obviously disagree with Jason Miller's analysis there. I disagree with both of their analyses, but very interesting that people close to Trump, people who are somewhat advising Trump, at least in the first example, are wanting him to announce, wanting him to make sure that he is running and makes that known earlier rather than later due to the FBI raid. So I think from the Republican Party's perspective, this is a bad idea. From Trump's perspective, it's a good idea because he will have somewhat of a better branding tool if he's actually running for president and can say they're going after a candidate to try to stop me from winning. I do think that will even further enrage people who support him, even though, as we all should recognize, regardless of how you feel about this particular investigation, regardless of how you feel about any of the details as of now, you do have to recognize in principle, we shouldn't be against federal authorities or authorities generally, or just the law coming down on individuals, regardless of how prominent they are, regardless of if they're actively running or in public office, because people should be held accountable for crimes they commit, regardless of who they are. And obviously that's not the current state of our country. There's so many examples of people who are wealthy, powerful, well-connected, getting away with things that an average American would never get away with. And so I think breaking that cycle is a good thing. And if they can prove Trump's crimes, then absolutely hold him accountable for those. But kind of scary that we could see a situation where in the midst of a presidential campaign, one of the candidates is being investigated for federal crimes. Crazy stuff.